earliest moments starts with me sobbing. I refuse to be soothed. Mom took me to the kitchen table. She pulled down a sheet of wrapping paper from the top of the fridge, set the paper down, and began to fold. She then lifted the folded paper up to her mouth and blew into it. Like a balloon. Kan, 老虎. Look, a tiger. A little paper tiger stood on the table. Its tail twitched and it pounced playfully at my finger. I laughed and I stroked its back. I didn't know this at the time, but Mom's breath was special. She breathed into her paper animals so that they shared her breath, and thus moved with her life. This was her magic. For many parents, it is a great joy to see small parts of yourself reflected back into your child. However, being an Asian American child comes with many struggles with your identity. It can be difficult to fit in when society is pressuring you to do so. The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. Dad had picked Mom out of a catalog back in 1973. The catalog said she was 18, loved to dance, and spoke good English because she was from Hong Kong. None of that turned out to be true. I was born a year later in the year of the tiger. When I was 10, my family moved to a house across town. Two of the neighbors came by to welcome us. The neighbors conversed in our living room, not trying to be particularly quiet. He seems like a normal man. Why would he do that? I don't know, but something about the mixing just never seems right. Slanty eyes, white face, a little monster. I said nothing and went into the bathroom. I looked into the mirror. I looked nothing like her. Nothing. At dinner, I asked Dad, "Do I have a chink face?" Dad put down his chopsticks. Mom looked at Dad, not understanding. She then looked back at me. 啥叫 chink? Speak English? She tried. What happened? I pushed the chopsticks and bowl before me away. Mom reached her hand to my forehead. 发烧了? Do you have a fever? I brushed her hand away. I'm fine. Speak English. Speak English to her, Dad said. You knew this was going to happen someday. Mom dropped her hands to her sides. You have to. I've been too easy on you. She needs to fit in. Mom looked at Dad. If I say love, I feel here. She pointed to her lips. If I say I feel here. She put her hand over her heart. If Mom spoke to me in Chinese, I refused to answer her. Every once in a while, I would see Mom at the kitchen table studying the plain side of a sheet of wrapping paper. Later, a new animal would appear on my nightstand and try to cuddle up to me. I caught them and squeezed them until the air went out of them and stuffed them away in a box in the attic. Mom finally stopped making the animals when I was in high school. Mom was lying on the hospital bed. She was not even 40 yet, but she looked so much older. Mom smiled. Focus on your life and keep the box you have in the attic with you. Every year at Qingming, take it out and think of me. I will be with you always. Qingming was the Chinese festival for the dead. The paper menagerie hidden in the box in the attic had become brittle, and the bright wrapping paper patterns had begun fading. Perhaps whatever magic had animated them stopped when Mom died. A rustle. I looked up and saw that a ball of wrapping paper and torn tape was on the floor, and it began to unfurl itself. I saw that it was Lao Hu, who I hadn't seen in such a long time. I sat down on the floor and pointed out a finger. Lao Hu's tail twitched, and he jumped with feline grace onto my lap. He then began to unfurl himself. In my lap was a square crease of wrapping paper, the plain side up. It was filled densely with Chinese characters. I never learned how to read Chinese. I went to the computer. Today was Qingming. I took the letter with me downtown where I knew the Chinese tour buses had stopped. I stopped every tourist asking, 您会读中文吗? Can you read Chinese? I hadn't spoken in Chinese for so long that I wasn't sure if they understood. Finally, a young woman agreed to help. We sat down on the bench together where she read the letter to me aloud. Daughter, we hadn't spoken in a long time, so I decided to write to you. I'm going to write in the paper animals that I used to like so much. The paper animals will stop moving when I stop breathing. If I write to you with all my heart, I need to write in Chinese. All this time, I still haven't told you the story of my life. I was born in the Sukulu village, where my mother had taught me how to make these paper crafts and give them life. In 1966, I became a 10-year-old orphan. One day in the morning market, an old woman pulled me aside, and she told me about American men who wanted Asian wives. If I can give my husband a good life, then he would give me a good life. It was the only hope I had. It is not a very romantic story, but it is my story. But then, you were born, and I was so happy when I looked into your face and saw the shades of my mother, my father, and myself. Now I had someone to talk to. When you first said your words to me in Chinese, I felt like there were no worries in the world. But then you grew up a little, and now you do not like your Chinese eyes. My eyes. But can you understand how much joy your very existence brought to me? And can you understand how much it hurt when you stopped talking to me and wouldn't even let me talk to you in Chinese? I felt I was losing everything all over again. Why won't you talk to me, daughter? The young woman handed the paper back to me. I couldn't bear to look into her face. I refolded the paper back into the hole. I cradled him in the crook of my arm, and as he purred, we began to walk home.